What's up YouTube? Dale here from Zephyr, and today I'm going to give you a first Genesys profile for Tenyi SwordSoul, or SwordSoul Tenyi, whichever way you want to kind of call it. Now the reason I decided to go specifically for a Genesys version of that is that a modern deck hasn't really changed a huge amount. The biggest change that we got was the fact that we don't have access to the Protoss anymore. And it will change again once Burst Protocol comes down, because you're going to want to get your hands on the Chain-Bound Dragon, as I do feel that that's kind of like a nice little cool card that you can make in the deck very easily, and that can then provide you with a little bit more negations. It's not going to be Baron de Fleur, but it will still put in a bit of work for you. The other thing that I liked about the Genesys version of it is it allows you to be a little bit more creative. It allows you to start opening up the doors. It's like, what can you do when you don't have access to the Tenyi links? What other options do you have available to you? And I've kind of gone down like a bit of a spicy route, as I decided to involve some ice barriers in the extra deck, which I think were kind of like catch your opponent off guard and are actually really kind of cool and easy to make, with another addition I made in the main deck that takes up 0 points. So this deck list goes to a total of 99 points. I know, cutting it very, very close. There are a couple of cards that you might be able to take out and you might be able to adapt depending on what you want to try and get access to. And it doesn't really have access to as many hand interactions or breakers as you might like, just because cards like your Yugioh and your long one being 5 points apiece and then 33 points is actually very, very costly. Anyway, I'm going to take you through the entire list, show you what we've got. We've got the main, we've got the extra, and of course we have the side deck, everything included with a Genesys deck. You can adapt your side deck to the environment and what you have available to you, but these are just going to be guidelines for you to kind of adapt with and go, okay, cool, I want to give this deck a run out. How can I adapt it and change it? So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. As another note as well, on these custom tokens I have in front of me, I always get asked where I get them from. I actually bought these when SwordSoul first came out, which was absolutely ages ago, and this was from someone online that made custom tokens. I don't know if they're doing it anymore, but you should be able to pick up cards quite similar to this that are on something like Etsy, Temu, AliExpress, you name it, but they're really kind of cool. I really like them. So, starting off with the first monster of your SwordSoul. Now, your SwordSoul lineup, luckily for both Modern and Genesys, is always going to be the same. You can play 3 long one at 5 points apiece. The ironic thing is, if you wanted to, you could probably play Baron de Fleur in the deck. It is 80 points. You would have to take a lot of sacrifices, because then your emergence is 10 points apiece. These are going to be 5 points apiece. You would definitely not be able to play Yugioh. So it's not really worth it, in my opinion, which is why I play other level 10 synchros that I think are going to be much better for the long one. 3 Moyi, 0 points. Gotta love that. 2 Tire. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with how this deck works, I'll take you through the bare basics of it. But all the SwordSoul monsters have like certain effects that you get to do in order to kind of spawn a level 4 tuner SwordSoul token, which is why, you know, you're always going to want to play these. Now, long one is you reveal it in the hand, you discard another discard another worm, summon it to the field, and then you spawn a level 4 token. And then when it is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, your opponent takes 1200 damage. The Moyi is you reveal another worm in the hand to spawn a token. In doing so, when you synchro summon it and it's sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you get to draw 1 card. Your Tire, you get to banish a worm monster from the graveyard, spawn the token, but then when it's sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you get to send a worm from the deck to the grave. So there are times when you're playing Summit that you can actually send the Moyi and then revive the Moyi and make your plays off the back of that. So that's something you could lean into a little bit more if you wanted to sacrifice some of the other points in this deck. Speaking of other points in the deck, 2 SwordSoul Emergence. Now, I had to cut one of these in order to make the sacrifice to fit a space of Trishula the Ice Barrier Dragon in the extra deck, as these are 10 points apiece. This does kind of reduce a little bit of consistency, and we are playing 3 Incredible Ecclesia, which also are 3 points apiece. So you kind of have to make and choose what cards you want to adapt with, because the other cards that cost points is going to be your Tenyi Spirit Ashuna. So these are 3 points as well, which just make it a little bit awkward. Like pretty much already been mentioned with Genesys, is that the reason that some cards have such low point implications is that they can't be utilized with other cards. It's like kind of a forbidden combination, which I think is quite interesting. But 3 points on this one. I wouldn't get rid of all 3 Ecclesia for another Emergence. The fact that Emergence is searchable via Yugioh, yes, we only have 1 Yugioh, but as long as you control your resource management of that one, it shouldn't be an issue at all. Your Incredible Ecclesia has the quick effect to tribute it off to then special summon a SwordSoul from the deck. Yes, of course, you can also get access to Fallen of Albaz during the main phase, but we're not going to be playing Fallen of Albaz. Technically, you could do, and then discard and try and fuse into a Mirror Jade, but that's a completely different story. The idea behind this one is you're really going to want to tribute off to either get Tyre if you've already got a SwordSoul in the graveyard, or Worm in the graveyard, or you're going to go for Mo Yi. So it basically acts as a up to 5 copies of Tyre and then up to 6 copies of Mo Yi, not including the 2 emergence, which then takes your Mo Yi up to 8 and your Tyre up to 7. I am playing 2 Blackout. I actually think Blackout is one of the best cards for the SwordSoul strategy. Again, this is searchable, so if you wanted to cut it down and then you wanted to bump up like your Vishuda or any of the other Tenyis that I'm playing as well, you could do. I just quite like the idea that you target a worm monster you control and then 2 cards your opponent controls, you destroy them. And then if you banish it, you get to special summon a SwordSoul token, worm, level 4 tuner, again, the exact same as all the others. And then while the tokens are on the field, you can only summon synchro monsters, which is absolutely fine because 99% of our extra deck is synchro monsters. Moving on to the Tenyis, I'm playing, definitely a Shuna, but I'll get to that in a minute. 3 Shiruya. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, whoa, why? This one kind of facilitates links more than anything. I still like this as an extender. So this card is if you control a worm monster or a face-up non-effect monster, you get to special summon this card from the hand. Now, if it is sent to the graveyard as material, just for modern, so you know this, for a worm synchro monster, you get to special summon a Tenyi link monster. Now, we're not going to be doing that in Genesys. The idea is that this is a level 4 tuner that can extend itself. So if your Mo Yi gets interacted with, if your Tyre gets interacted with and negated, you don't have a tuner. On top of that as well, we do also play 2 level 4 Tenyi monsters in the form of the Mapora and the Shafana. So on top of that, not only can it facilitate a Synchro level 8, but you can also facilitate an XYZ. Now, shout out on this one because I specifically got this from Selza. So Selza did a Genesys SwordSoul profile back in December, and he was actually playing this, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I still like this card anyway, which is why I've upgraded it, but it's also one of these cards I was like, oh, that's really awesome. I still make Synchro level 8s. And he was like, no, yeah, well, what I do is I summon this down and I overlay into an XYZ. I'm like, oh, that's pretty spicy. The XYZ is going to be Exciton. I think it's like the best card you could possibly play with 0-point applications. But on top of that, what you need to remember is you are locked into Synchros while the tokens are on the field. So if you don't have a token on the field, you're not locked, which is absolutely fine. So I really like that one. The Mapora and the Shafana. Now, mainly these ones, again, the exact same as all the Tenyis, is if you control no effect monsters, you get to special summon the card from the hand. But then on top of that is if a face-up non-effect monster you control is either destroyed by battle or card effect, you banish this card from the graveyard, target one of those destroyed monsters and special summon it. Now, you're not going to be able to special summon it because all of your normal cards would be tokens. Target a card on the field and destroy it, but it's still another nice level 4 extender that does threaten your opponent of destroying certain cards if they try to interact with you. Your Mapora does the exact same thing, but it's when your opponent activates a card effect that targets a face-up non-effect monster you control. Quick effect is banish this card from the hand or graveyard. Now, the benefit of something like that is that with a deck like SwordSoul, you can facilitate, or you're basically there to starve off access to their tuners. If you can stop their tokens staying on the field, you can stop them getting into the synchro plays, which is why the Shiruya is actually more important because the only other tuners that we play is the Tenyi Spirited Hara, and it's not a level 4, so it makes your synchro plays quite awkward. So your opponent will always try and target, will always try to destroy, and always try and get rid of your tokens where at all possible if they know the SwordSoul strategy, and you're basically playing 2 cards that let you have a contingency if that happens to protect or to make sure that you can still float back and do what you need to do. For the other Tenyi monsters, 3 Tenyi Spirit Ashuna. So if you control no effect monsters, special summon it. The other benefit of this one is that you get to banish it if you control a face-up non-effect monster, and then special summon a Tenyi monster from the deck. However, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except worms, which again is absolutely fine because you need to remember that when you activate this, you then limit your targets in your extra deck, which again is absolutely fine because you kind of want to go through your other ones that are not worms before that and then use this to get into your other worms. The penultimate Tenyi Spirit that we play is Free Adhara. This is just a level 1 tuner. Can still work itself out. The idea is that you can get this directly from the deck with your Ashuna. And the other benefit of this one is you get to banish it from the graveyard if you control a non-effect monster. Target one of your banished worm monsters, accept itself and add it back to the hand. So you get to add back your Ashuna, which is really important. And the benefit of this one is that the effects can either be banished from the hand or graveyard. So it doesn't need to be specifically like, you don't always need to get it on the field, but you get it on the field and it's a free body, which is what you want to start with. Then the final Tenyi monster is 2 Tenyi Spirit Vishuda. Now, if you wanted to get rid of the Mapora or the Water Shafana, you can obviously work your way and play a 3rd Vishuda, which I don't really mind because I think it's a really cool card. So this graveyard effect is exactly the same as the Tenyi Spirit summoning conditions, but its graveyard effect is you get to banish it, or from the hand technically. Target a card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. So it can actually be very, very fretful, which is really cool. Then the spicy card that I'm playing in the main deck that I think really does open up some more synchro options for you is going back to the good old facial Ringo Worm, the Dragon Guardian, the 100 Apples. Now, if a face-up non-effect monster is on the field, so your tokens, you special summon this card from the hand. During the main phase, if you synchro summon this turn, you get to banish this card from the graveyard and special summon a 100 apple token, which is going to be a level 2 non-tuner. The player who summoned it can treat it as a tuner for a synchro summon. So the benefit of this one is it opens up the door, if you wanted to play synchro level 6s. More consistency can get you sometimes into synchro level 8s with like your long one. It can also get you into synchro level 10s using your Yugioh or any of your other level 8 like the Berserker, Baxia, you name it. You've got ways to do it. And I actually really quite liked this card back in the day. Yes, it wasn't the most perfect card for SwordSoul, and you were always going to be choosing cards like Protoss. You're already going to be choosing cards like Ash Blossoms if you have the option to, Molchemi Perudias. But I just quite like the option in Genesys, how this opens up the extra deck, and it doesn't cost any points. Then for the spell cards, I'm playing 3 Heavenly Dragon Cycle. So this gives you dodging capabilities. So you tribute a worm monster to then add a worm monster from the deck to the hand, or if you tributed a non-effect monster to activate this effect, you get to special summon it instead. So again, tribute the token, off you go. Then on top of that as well, you negate its effects during your main phase. If you control a face-up non-effect monster, you get to banish this card from the grave to add a Tenyi card from the deck to the hand. You can only use 1 effect per turn. We've got the 1 Vessel. So this one lets you send any worm monster from your deck to the grave, and then if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can add to your hand from the deck a Tenyi monster with a different name from those that you currently sent to the graveyard. So again, just searchability for what you need. Tenyi Affinity, so this is the field spell, so that when this card is activated, you can add a Vessel of the Dragon or the Heavenly Dragon Cycle, which is what you're going to go for. And then you also have the ability, you tribute a worm monster to target a monster on the field and destroy it. Only use each effect once per turn. And then during the end phase, you get to send this card to the grave, and if you do, you place a flawless perfection of the Tenyi from the deck or grave face up on the field. You can play that if you want to. That is one of the ones that if you have a non-effect monster face up on the field and your opponent summons a monster, you get to draw 2 cards. That is fine, probably more so in a modern deck, just when you have more hand interactions you can draw into. In this one, you don't really want to be utilizing that during your opponent's turn to draw into anything, because the best thing you can draw into will be DD Crow, which is the only card that I'm currently main decking. Then 1 SwordSoul Sacred Summit. You can play more of this if you want to. It's technically an in-archetypal searchable monster reborn for the deck, and it takes 0 points. So you target a SwordSoul monster in the graveyard, or if you control a synchro, you get to target any worm monster instead and special summon it. If it is banished, you can target a SwordSoul or a worm monster you control and increase or decrease its level by 1. Now, I didn't mention it, but that's obviously the same as Emergence if you banish it from the graveyard, which you do with Yugioh. And then the final monster in the main deck is going to be 3 DD Crow. I would love to go for a Vet Veiler because it's a tuner, and sometimes just special summoning down a Shuna of a shooter and then normal summoning down the Effect Veiler can actually really help you. But because Effect Veiler is 7 points, and I told you how tight the point allocation in the deck is a little bit risky. Now, if you were to get rid of the Ice Barrier extra deck options that I've decided to go for, plus the 1 point you have left over, that'll actually open up the door for you to play 2 Effect Veilers in the main deck if you wanted to make that trade-off. Moving on to the extra deck, so starting off with the SwordSoul monsters, we've got the 1 Yugioh, we've got the 1 Qinling Longwan, and then we've got the 1 Chengying. Now, it amazes me that this is 33 points and these two are 0 points. Absolutely crazy, but very funny. So your Yugioh, which actually it kind of makes sense because Yugioh's pretty great. So if it is synchro summoned, you get to add to your hand or banish a SwordSoul card from the deck. Quick effect, you get to banish a SwordSoul card or a worm monster from the hand or grave to then target one other effect monster on the field and negate its effects. You can only use each effect once per turn. The Sinister Sovereign, if you synchro summon this card, if you synchro summon another worm monster while this monster is on the field, you get to draw 1 card. If your opponent special summons a monster, except during the damage state, you get to banish one of those monsters, and if you do, inflict 1200 damage to your opponent. When your opponent activates a spell or trap card or an effect, quick effect, banish this card, and if you do, inflict 1200 damage to your opponent. So this, when you're already going to make it with long one, you're going to burn your opponent out for 3600 life point damage, which is insane, and then you're constantly going to be able to go clear, and clear. Your Chengying, again, if for each banished card, this card gains 100 attack and defense, and monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense. And if it would be destroyed by card effect, you banish 1 card from the grave instead. If a card or cards is banished except during damage step, you get to banish 1 card each from both your opponent's field and graveyard. So this is like your Mac Daddy Boss monster. This is your Disruptor for going first, and this is just like your game ender. For the Tenyis, we've got the 1 Tenyi Spirit Mula Adhara. So this one requires, again, 1 tuner and then 1 or more non-tuner. If it's synchro summoned and 2 or more worm monsters are in your graveyard and or banishment, you get to add a field spell from the deck to the hand. So that's how you search out the 10 Infinity, and if you wanted to side deck in some degenerate field spells, you could do very easily. Then on top of that, you can only use each of the following effects once per turn. While a non-effect monster is face up on the field, it gains the following effects. It can't be destroyed by opponent's card effects, your opponent cannot target it with card effects, and it can make a second attack during the battle phase. So if you just want to spawn a token and then don't actually want to synchro off with it, this can just go cool, attack and attack. We've got the Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. So while your opponent activates a monster effect, you get a quick effect, and you get to banish it. And then if this card destroys an effect monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, it can make an attack, gains attack equal to the destroy monster's attack, and then it gets to attack again. So it can also make a second attack on monsters during the battle phase. Very, very disruptive. And then for the Ice Jade package, so I'm playing, well, I say Ice Jade package, I meant Ice Barrier, but I am also playing on Ice Jade. So for the Ice Jade package, we've got the one Ice Jade Argerine. The benefit of this one is it requires a water tuner, which is what your tokens are anyway. It gets a quick effect. Activate this effect. Face-up monsters you control cannot be destroyed or banished by your opponent's card effects this turn. And then if you activate this effect in response to your opponent's card effect or activation and your opponent has a card or cards with the name on the field or in their graveyard, you get to banish those cards. If a card or cards is banished by your opponent's card effect while this card is in the grave, except during damage state, you get to special summon it. So it's actually quite a nice disruptive card, which I quite like. Then for the Ice Barrier, play the one Trishula Zero Dragon of the Ice Barrier, the one Lancia, and then the one Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier. So this is 13 points. But the idea is, with your Lancia, so once per chain, if your opponent special summons a monster, except during damage state, you get to special summon an Ice Barrier monster from the hand, deck, or extra deck, or graveyard. Then you can change one attack position monster your opponent controls to defense position. You can only use this effect once, up to twice per turn. Then on top of that, if this face-up synchro summon card in its own control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, special summon an Ice Barrier synchro monster from your deck and it is treated as a synchro summon. So the idea is, if your opponent gets rid of this, it specials out your Trishula Zero Dragon of the Ice Barrier. So when it is synchro summoned, you get to banish up to 3 cards your opponent controls. If this synchro summon card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card, special summon a Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier from your extra deck or graveyard and its attack becomes 3,300, then halve the attack of any face-up monster your opponent controls and negate their effects. So that then gets you into this. So when this card is synchro summoned, you get to banish up to 1 card from your opponent's hand, field, and or grave. The idea is that this can kind of like spawn other Ice Barriers, but it's just one of these walls. If your opponent gets rid of it, you go, cool, I'll get this. And if they get rid of this, you go, cool, I get this. So it's not perfect, and it is just a 3-card engine. If you wanted to, the other cards that I've been testing around with and contemplating is the Ancient Fairy Life Dragon. It's just like a level 8 synchro monster that can attack in defense mode that gives you a draw. Quite nice. You can also consider Coral Dragon. I think Coral Dragon is quite a nice little option, but I decided to go with Charge Warrior instead because this is going to be your non-tuner. And then when it is synchro summoned, you get to draw 1 card, and it can also attack all of your opponent's special summon monsters once each. So you can kind of like clear the field on its own, even though it's only 2,000 attack. But then it is a level 6, so that when you're utilizing the Apple Dragon makes this with your Moyi, and then the Apple Dragon can come back and you can upgrade this into a level 8 as long as you've got the right level 8 to go for. Because remember, you're level 8 more times than not. So this is a monster in the non-tuner, so this one's completely fine. But your Yugioh, wherever it may be, requires specifically a worm monster as the non-tuner. So your non-tuner would be your Stardust Charge Warrior. So it's entirely up to you. You get the option for it. You could also go for Coral Dragon. That is absolutely fine as well. You'll get the draw, but you also get the discard, and it's a little bit stronger, and it's a tuner. Then moving on to the other cards. So I do play the one Ancient Fairy Life Dragon. As already mentioned, you can use Ultimate Slayer targets. You can also utilize, I'm trying to remember exactly. Let me just get my list up to the one side. The other cards that I was kind of considering, because I wanted to play around with it. It's like I haven't played SwordSoul for a long, long time because it doesn't really change, if I'm being completely honest. There we go. So the other ones are your 3 Ultimate Slayer targets. You can play the 3 Ice Barrier cards. You can take the Ice Barrier cards out if you wanted to. You would then look at some other generic level 8s if you wanted to go for that one. I honestly feel that Coral Dragon is quite a good option as well, and it just gives you a bit of flexibility. You can also max out on your Baxias because Baxias are only 0 points, which is mental. And then the one Yazi. So for those of you, again, unfamiliar with this one, when this card is synchro summoned, you target cards on the field up to the number of different original attributes of the worm type monsters used for this synchro summon of this card. You shuffle them into the deck. And then once a turn, you get to target a card you control and a level 4 or lower monster in your graveyard. Destroy the target on the field, and if you do, special summon a monster from the graveyard. The Yazi, so it cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects. You only use each of the following effects once per turn. Target a Yangtze monster you control and a card your opponent controls and destroy them. And then when this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, special summon a worm type monster from the deck in defense position. So this is like one of the best ways to get Tyre from the deck, because then Tyre then has worms in the grave to banish. Then the final card is Exton Knight. If you want to play more rank 4s, again, that can open up the door for some of the spaces if you wanted to. So that's it for the entire main deck and the extra deck. Moving on to the side deck. Now that's your 99 points right there. The side deck, 0-point application. So 3 Cosmic Cyclone to respect some back row. So you can go for Twin Twisters if you wanted to as well. It's entirely up to you which one you choose. 3 Mistaken Arrest just to double down going first. And if we're going to double down going first with Mistaken Arrest, you might as well double down with 3 Gravity Collapse as well. You don't have to play this, but again, it's a counter trap that requires 0 points, and all you need to do is sack off one of your synchros. And then for going second, we do play 3 Gamma Seals if you need to deal with Lunar Lights or any kind of Towers-esque monsters that are causing you a lot of issues. And then the final card is going to be 3 Dark World No More. Just kind of turn the field off and then just go punch, punch, punch. Again, if you wanted to open up the door, that's where your Ultimate Slayer can come into place for something like this. And then you can flex up the extra deck a little bit more as well. So that's it for the entire main deck, extra deck, side deck, and even the tokens as mentioned. If you don't have any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I like the idea of this. Now, I'm not saying that this is the best Genesys deck ever made. I just think it's quite nice for SwordSoul to kind of have a second go at it. It'll be interesting to see if Baron de Fleur, I doubt it comes back, but if Baron de Fleur gets reduced in points, that'll be quite interesting to see. Like I said, for the modern version of this deck, the Chainbound Dragon is going to be very, very interesting to see when that comes out. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I want to see what will happen when I put the Chainbound Dragon in this. And then in the future as well, when we get the new extended art frames for the Stardust Dragon monster, the new one of that one, that could be quite a good application for the deck as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.